comedian David Boyle, and I'm quitting alcohol. So I've finished my World War One book, 1917, and I'm obsessed with history now. I've been pretty fucking interested in history for a little while, but now it's just, there's too much. There's too much I don't know. Like, it's insane. Now I need to go on a crusade to find out, like, what the difference between communism is and Marxism and socialism and anarchism, because they're different things. What happened in Russia, the revolution in Russia, that was not a Marxist revolution. It was loosely under the banner of Marxism because Lenin fucking studied Marx. But by the time it was fucking said and done, Lenin was pretty much just an autocrat, quasi-dictator who just stamped out fucking any opposition, killed everyone. It was pretty brutal. And he wasn't even the guy either. He seems to have been somewhat cowardly. He was barely in Russia. He spent like 15 years before the revolution, and it wasn't even his revolution, by the way. But he spent 15 years in Switzerland writing articles. He wasn't even a particularly popular figure. Bolshevik means the majority. There was also a party, the Mensheviks, I don't know what the fucking word is, and that means minority. And they were socialists, whatever the fuck that means. I need to find out what these fucking things mean, because there seems to be nuance to the whole thing. But there was like an internal vote in this party that they were a part of, and there were two factions, and I forget what it was for like controlling power or something. And the Bolsheviks, who were led by Lenin, they lost the vote, but he owned the newspaper. So the next day, even though he lost the vote, like 25 to 21, he called his side the Bolsheviks and the other side the Mensheviks or whatever the fuck they were. Anyway, that's not the point. Lenin wasn't even the guy. If anyone was the guy, it was Trotsky. But the original revolution in Russia was like a democratic socialist revolution, who the head of that ended up being Alexander Kerensky. And the only problem they had, they threw out the Tsar. Russia was going to be a fucking democracy. Everything was going to go fucking fine, except this Kerensky guy wanted to keep Russia in World War One, continue fighting. And the Russians were getting fucking decimated by Germany. The Russians didn't want to be in the war. The Russian people, the fucking army was deserting. There was mutinies everywhere. But Kerensky, who seems like somewhat of a okay character, for whatever reason wanted to continue the Tsarist war. The Tsar was just like the king of Russia, who Kerensky overthrew. But keeping Russia in World War One against Germany was not the play. That was not the play. Russia just continued to get fucking slaughtered. And then what happened was, this fucking Lenin cunt who'd been raving and ranting about the fucking bourgeoisie and all this sort of shit and the corrupt politicians started taking money from the Germans, and then it was the Germans who sent Lenin back into Russia to try and get Russia to sign a peace treaty with Germany, because Germany didn't want to fight Russia anymore. They had more problems on the other fucking front against England and France and soon to be the US. So it was Germany who fucking sent Lenin back in to overthrow the overthrowers. And it's like, that's fucking cooked. And the whole time, Woodrow Wilson could have easily have just helped Kerensky and overthrow the Bolsheviks, who were like full communists. Kerensky was more like a socialist or whatever. So that's all fucking wild that Germany fucking basically put in Lenin. And then once Lenin seized power, he immediately signed a peace treaty with Germany. He lost a lot of territory, lost Ukraine, lost Poland, lost fucking Estonia, shit like that. It was a disaster. And then because he fucking took control of all the farms and all the production, 3 million Russians died. This is after being slaughtered in World War One. The Germans beat Russia in World War One. It was the first military defeat in Russia's history. It's wild because if the US didn't come, the Germans would have fucking beat all the major powers of Europe by themselves. I think Romania might have been with them for a second. But yeah, the Germans were on a fucking tear. And anyway, fucking in Russia, this is what happened as well. In 1920 to 21, there was the Russian famine. 3 million. Some people say 3 million. Some people say 5. Some people say 8. 8 million Russians died in the famine, and they desperately needed help. And who came to help them? The US. The US sent $300 million worth of food and medicine to the Russians, to Vladimir Lenin, to get them through it for some reason. So the system that Lenin had been fighting against his entire life came to his rescue. And the US had offered aid before that, and he refused. And then eventually too many people died and he had to take it. It's fucking wild. And then Japan was in there for some reason. Japan was fighting Russia before World War One. There's a lot of shit going on that I just didn't even have any fucking clue about. But everything's just a continuation of pretty much this time. So Lenin started the Cheka, which pretty much was the KGB. And then Stalin replaced Lenin. Then Khrushchev came in. And Khrushchev was the guy who was fucking fighting with JFK. But before that, Russia and Germany pretty much became allies. There was a non-aggression pact. And then they ended up fighting the bloodiest battle in the history of humanity against each other in Stalingrad. In both World War One and World War Two, the biggest losses were suffered by Russia and Germany. Horrific losses in World War One by France, England. The US came like the last year. World War One wasn't like the US's war, but if they didn't turn up, fucking Germany would have shredded them. So now I need to investigate more into what the fuck is going on. Because it seems like a lot of the same patterns that were happening back then seem to be happening now. And it only takes like 1 or 2 just miscalculations to drag countries into a massive fucking war. It doesn't take much at all. And then once you're in it, it's fucking hard. It's hard to get out. I tell you what, one of the things that affected me the most reading this book was that fucking armistice. So England, France, Germany signed an armistice to lay down their guns. Not a peace treaty, just like, all right, let's stop fighting and work shit out. So they all signed it, but it didn't go into effect for 3 days. So the fighting continued, even though all the countries had decided to fucking, we're going to stop fighting, but it's going to be in 3 days. We've decided we're not going to continue, but we'll just keep going for 3 days, even though we've decided we're going to stop in 3 days. So they just continued the slaughter for 3 days, 3 full days. And apparently in those 3 days, more people died in those 3 days than D-Day in World War II. It was just senseless fucking slaughter for no reason. The armistice had been signed. That one I just don't understand. Like, why wasn't it ratified immediately? Why did you have to fucking go 3 days? That was sickening, reading that. Just going, what an absolute fucking criminal act. Anyway, all war's senseless. It's fucking out of control. But that'll do fucking for tonight, and I'll see you the fuck later.